The Dark Side of Walking Abroad, Sabina's Nightmare in Saudi Arabia. Sabina stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat as Mr. Don's words echoed in her ears. Her mind struggled to process what he had just said. "No, sir, please. You don't mean..." A slow, cruel smile spread across his lips. "These dogs," he said, gesturing towards the large, well-fed animals lounging on their cushions, "have needs, just like humans. Your job is to satisfy them." Sabina's stomach twisted violently. Her hands trembled as she gripped the hem of her dress, knuckles turning white. The air in the lavish room felt stifling, pressing down on her like a weight. The chandelier above gleamed, casting a golden glow over everything, too beautiful, too elegant for the horror unfolding within these walls. The dogs, oblivious to the monstrous suggestion, lay lazily, tails flicking. One lifted its head, curious but calm. Another yawned, stretching its long legs before settling back down. They didn't understand. But Sabina did. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Yet, Mr. Don stood before her, his gaze unwavering. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Every muscle in her body had locked in terror. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Sir. I can't." His smile didn't fade. "You can. And you will." Tears burned behind her eyes. "Please, sir. I came here to work as a maid. Not for this." His expression darkened, the lightness in his voice vanishing. "You think you have a choice?" Sabina's whole life had been about survival. She had carried heavy loads under the scorching Tanzanian sun just to feed her mother and daughter. She had left home believing she was making a sacrifice for a better future. But this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. A dog shifted in its bed, sniffing the air. She swallowed hard, her hands damp with sweat. Begging wouldn't change anything. She had to think. She forced herself to breathe, her mind racing. "Give me 2 days, sir." Mr. Don's eyes narrowed. 2 days. For what? Sabina steadied her voice. I need to prepare myself. It's not easy." A moment of silence stretched between them before he finally let out a smirk. "Fine. 2 days. But after that, you do as I say." He turned toward the door, opening it with ease. "Rest. Think. But don't forget, this is not a request." And then he was gone. The dream of a better life. Sabina had never imagined her life would come to this. She had been a young mother in Tanzania, struggling to provide for her sickly mother and her 6-year-old daughter, Amina. Every morning, she woke before the sun, selling mangoes and washing clothes for the village women just to put food on the table. Their home was small, built of mud bricks, with a thin, rattling roof. Her mother lay on a worn mattress, coughing weakly, her body fragile with illness. Amina, bright and full of energy, would tug at Sabina's dress. "Mama, I'm hungry." Sabina would smile, brushing a hand over her daughter's cheek. "Wait, my love. I'll make something." Some mornings, there was enough. Other mornings, she boiled water, hoping the little flour she had would be enough to quiet their hunger. No matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. Medicine was expensive. School fees were high. And food, some days, they barely had any at all. At night, she would sit outside, staring at the moon, listening to the distant laughter from houses where bellies were full and children slept without worry. She wanted that life for Amina. Then she heard about the jobs in Saudi Arabia. Women from her village had gone before her, sending money back home, building new houses, providing better lives for their families. It's good work, they said. You clean, you cook, and they pay you well. Sabina thought about it for days, lying awake at night. Could she leave Amina behind? Could she bear to be apart? One evening, she sat beside her mother and whispered, "Mama, I want to go to Saudi Arabia for work." Her mother's tired eyes opened, searching her face. "It won't be easy," she whispered. "I know, Mama." Her mother sighed, reaching for Sabina's hands. "If you must go, my child, go. But promise me one thing, you must be very careful." Sabina forced a small smile. "I will, Mama. I promise." That night, after tucking Amina into bed, she sat in the quiet darkness. She had made her decision. She would go. For Amina. For her mother. No matter what waited for her on the other side. A journey into darkness. Sabina had never left Tanzania before. She had never imagined stepping onto an airplane, soaring above the clouds. The thought had both thrilled and terrified her. At the airport, everything was bright and new. She clutched her small bag tightly, whispering to herself, "This is for Mama. This is for Amina. This is for our future." The moment she landed in Saudi Arabia, she knew she was in a different world. The heat pressed against her skin like a heavy blanket. The city was filled with towering buildings, wide roads, and lights that never seemed to go out. She was taken to a small office where she met the family who had hired her. The woman looked neat and serious, dressed in fine clothes. "You will take care of our home," she said, her tone firm. "Cook, clean, and help with the children." The man beside her barely spoke. He only nodded, his dark eyes scanning Sabina from head to toe before turning away. At first, things seemed fine. The house was grand, with golden chandeliers, cool marble floors, and enormous windows. The children played and laughed. The kitchen smelled of rich spices. Sabina sent a message home, "I am safe. The house is big. The job is good." But soon, everything changed. The smiles disappeared. The kindness faded. Sabina's days became endless labor, from dawn until midnight. She scrubbed floors until her fingers were raw, washed clothes, prepared meals, and tended to the children. If she sat for even a moment, the woman snapped at her. "No resting. You are here to work." She ate only after the family had finished, and sometimes, there was barely any food left for her. And then, the real nightmare began. The man of the house started watching her. At first, she tried to ignore it, but one evening, as she was sweeping the hallway, she felt a presence behind her. Before she could turn, a hand brushed against her back. She froze. "You work hard, don't you?" he murmured. Sabina gripped the broomstick tightly. "Yes, sir," she whispered. His fingers lingered on her shoulder. "Maybe you should come to my room later. I can teach you how to relax." Her stomach churned. "My madam will be looking for me." His face hardened. "Then go." From that day on, everything changed. And then, there was the night he led her into the special room, where the dogs waited, and where she realized she had to escape.